Hello, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book rant. Today, I'm going to be covering this book, Terraformers. I bought this book back in November over Thanksgiving weekend. I bought it with a couple other books. Let's see, Dragon by Stephen Brust, Princess Beard by D. Dawson. That's right over here on the bookshelf, right there. Tool of War, which is a signed copy by P. Bessie Galuppi, and this book, which was also signed by Annalie Newitz. So yeah, this is the signature. That's the autograph, and it doesn't look like either initial in their name, whether it is A or N. You can't tell. So normally, I don't put signed books back into the used book marketplace. This one, I'm not a fan of the autograph, so I'll probably put it back in, and I understand why. Only a year after publication, it was even a signed copy was at the used bookstore. The used bookstore I bought this at and those other three books was the Broadway Book Mall in Denver, Colorado. I liked their selection. It was pretty big. They were an interesting couple of cashiers. The people at that bookstore were really good. This book is about a far-flung future where humanity has left Earth for the stars, but it also achieved certain social and technological advances before it left. And those include the acknowledgement of non-human animal species as intelligent and the ability to uplift certain intelligent species. So what they did was dogs and a few other species ended up being implanted with intelligence upgrades, and it turned out that those animals, now intelligent, were able to lobby for their own recognition and rights. And the world, the citizens of Earth had also kind of grown to appreciate their planet in a way that modern humanity doesn't really do. So they're able to modify humanity and animals to make them operate in the new normal system. And what they did was used a kind of framework of a Neanderthal and modified it so that they would be able to breathe in a highly sulfuric terrestrial environment. Expanding upon that, they left these Neanderthal-like creatures to terraform the world. So this book takes place on a distant planet, one that has been purchased and modified by a company that is advertising a nature preserve planet that when you get there, what you are going to find is a Pleistocene environment, pre-human, and it will be untouched. And more importantly, it will be protected from poachers. What they started with was a planet with some degree of volcanic activity. The air wasn't breathable by humans, and so they sent a genetically modified kind of humanity that could breathe that air to work on the foundations of terraforming such that life on this planet would produce oxygen enough for it to be breathable by humans. And the expectation is that over a couple thousand years, these modified humans are going to do their work, and then once the air is no longer breathable by them, they're going to die off, and then their descendant generations will be modified so that they can breathe the newer air, and then those people can continue the work where their parents left off, and so on and so forth. One of the roles in this society is rangers, and these people are kind of nature's protectors in a way that modern park rangers aren't really, but maybe some forest rangers in like wilderness areas kind of operate like that. And so it opens with the main character of the first part of the story, and her name is Destry. Destry is a one of those rangers, and she detects smoke. She detects meat cooking and some other things. It's very clearly a man-made impression upon this planet. And she shows up, and there is a human body, effectively, to go back to like ancillary justice, there is a human with an ancillary body on this planet, and it is being used to kind of operate as that person's consciousness on the planet. And they are a poacher. But when Destry arrives to enact justice and impose the law on this person, they claim that they are one of the investors' kids, that this person, the ranger, is going to be in big trouble if they kill the poacher. And Destry ignores it and kills the ancillary anyway. And this sets in motion a lot of issues. Destry is with her moose. Each ranger is assigned a mount. Her moose is named Whistle. Now, this also brings up an interesting dynamic, which is that Whistle has an intelligence assignment that keeps them unintelligent. They can only use monosyllabic words. It is a intelligent creature that has some rights, but not the same rights as a human. Other animals, including other mooses in this story, do have intelligence assignments high enough to be a fully functioning human. But the intelligence assignment, it's an artificial thing that humanity imposes on non-human entities to keep them controlled. Destry, with her moose Whistle, are tasked with investigating a error in their system, and when they get there, they discover those Neanderthal-like first generation terraformers surviving and living and thriving to a certain degree in a volcanic lava tube community. Basically, these lava tubes happened, they were able to close off those lava tubes from the outside and then create a city inside those lava tubes so that they are able to breathe that sulfuric gas in their area without any of those gases dissipating, and thus causing those early terraformers to suffocate. And what happened was that the business that owns the terraforming operation, way above Destry's head, has decided to divert the river, which had at one point cut through the mountains, and I'll pull up the map to show this. This river cut right through the mountains and came out at the sea. But a dam on the river cuts off the water flow at like here-ish, so that the water doesn't continue flowing to the sea. And that affects the water supply of the those like primordial terraformers, and they are considering rebellion and an act of violence to break the dam and return the river to its original flow. As they get there, Destry and her companions, including Whistle and a couple other rangers, those rangers decide that they need to let the other rangers know, and the rangers are kind of an independent body, an independent governing body that are renting those bodies. So they are subject to the company's control, but they also have their own rights within as a self-governing entity. And with all of the rangers in conference, some of them decide they shouldn't bite the hand that feeds them. They shouldn't go against the company, despite them violating a lot of environmental laws. And Destry and her fellows say that they would prefer to fight for these people because they are people, they have found a way to live, and they deserve life just as much as anyone else. So Destry's fellows end up winning the vote, but in any situation like that, the opposing faction can request a single addendum to the amendment. And their addendum is, once you leave here, you are no longer us. So yes, we acknowledge that we lost, but you are going to be separating from us. And that is an acceptable enough amendment to it. And what this does is the Rangers then start sitting it out, the ones that stayed behind. They sit out the conflict, and even to a certain degree act in opposition to the main Rangers. The main Rangers then help with the attack and are able to reset the river's flow and negotiate a kind of peace with the owners of the planet. So that negotiated peace, which is technically illegal, that negotiated peace acknowledges the rights and citizenship of those progenitor terraformers. So the first part of this book, which I'm mostly summarizing, is 140 out of 335 pages. Everything that comes out of the rest of the book is because of the political ramifications of that illegal treaty, and how when that business passes on the rights to ownership to a different business, does that business legally have to honor those peace agreements, as illegal as they are? And it's a lot of political protest. It's a lot of analyzing what it means to be human, what it means to be intelligent, what it means to be a member of a society, a citizen of a society. What do you need to do to enforce laws? And what does it take to work towards the betterment of the community as a whole? In this case, the business does eventually lose in all of their battles because they constantly step on their own feet, because documents exist to prove that they knew about certain aspects going into the purchase. And all of these different components allow for this planet to effectively have a self-governing body that they are accepted into the overall human government as a self-governing branch. So it's an interesting book, and it really gets you thinking about all those different aspects. This is only a single standalone book. It's not a longer form story like Ancillary Justices, the Imperial Radch trilogy, but I feel like what constitutes a person and what it takes to achieve personhood and basic rights is a topic and a theme done better in Ancillary Justice and Ancillary Sword and that trilogy, much better than in Terraformers. So it feels like it's treading ground I had just recently read, and that's partially why I enjoyed it in the moment. But looking back, it doesn't do that task as well as other books I've read. So it does do a pretty good job of telling that story. I've already read that kind of story, and relatively recently. So I suspect I'm going to put this book back into the used book marketplace. It'll get me some credit at Coaz. So yeah, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book rant.